Good evening, this is Pine Leaf Needles, and welcome to LOTRO Players News, where we take a look at the latest news in LOTRO, and here at LOTRO Players. And tonight we have with us Draculetta.
Hey, everybody.
Ethelros.
Hey.
Braxwolf.
Hello, Lotro.
Lily Kate.
Hello, everybody, and I hope I managed to remain for at least half of the show tonight.
We all hope you do. Endang.
Hey, everybody.
And Cithrin.
Hello.
And today we had our first news item is that they, over in Bulwer, they held the first run of the Shield, meaning the new dwarf runs that they're doing. This was a test run where they're going to find out exactly how they were going to do the later runs. And I don't know, has anybody else watch this? I guess Cithrin, you did.
I did.
I did not watch it, actually. I just took the notes from the forums. But Lily Kate can talk about it if she actually watched it.
I popped on just as they was heading out the first time. And they actually ran it in double quick time. And then they was thinking about having stops where everybody has to pass. And they got to Caladrim Gate really quickly, so they went back to the start and ran it again.
Wow.
On sort of plus one.
Yes,
and they ended up at the vineyard.
Yes, the change that they did make was that the runs will now be required to complete the Path of the Fellowship deed, which means you have to pass certain key locations within Moria in order to get credit for it. And in fact, they had some trouble with the 21st Hall.
Yeah, they had to go back for it. Yeah, it just makes it a little more challenging, I think. So if anybody's got the... can you still hear me?
You're going in and out.
Yeah.
I'm going in and out as usual. Yeah, so if anybody had the route already planned out, they might want to reconsider which way they're going on.
Right.
And I'll shush now and let somebody within my...
Yes, if you didn't have the 21st Hall, the Chamber Crossroads, and both sides of the Bridge of Khazad-dûm, you'll need to make some adjustments.
But it was still a quick run.
Yes, it was a lot quicker than the trip to Isengard, that's for sure. So
yeah, they're hoping either to do multiples in one session or to be able to do something else after the run. That's a little bit fun, you know.
Right, and it looks like you're still going in and out, unfortunately. So, anyone else have anything to say about this before we go on? Oh, yes, you did have some... Oh, Cithrin, talk about the little notes that you had here, because I know you had some items that happened.
Yeah, so as you know, on these runs, Sapiens answers questions, and most of them were pretty much stuff we already knew, or not terribly new information, because we've been getting so much new information last week, so it kind of, not a whole lot new to talk about. But I did pull out some questions to talk about.
The first one's obvious
for example, yeah, the first one is... shouldn't be surprising. They were asked any new nifty cosmetics coming soon, and Sapiens replied that there's actually a discussion about cosmetics earlier in the morning from the stream, and he won't go into details what it may or may not be coming. But so it's pretty vague, but as a cosmetics fan, it's very exciting.
Well, yeah.
And also, he was asked when U14 will be released on the live servers, and he said that there'll be at least one more build, which is build 2, which we're on now, and maybe 2 more Bull Roarer builds. So we're looking at maybe a total of 3 Bull Roarer builds altogether, based on that comment.
Really surprises me, though, because the level of polish in the first update was like an NDA expansion level of polish. It's a lot better with the second update, but I think they'll still need at least 2 more updates before it's ready to release, or it will be released in not the best state. That's just my 2 cents.
All right.
I think 4 is kind of the sweet spot. I mean, I think we needed a 5th one because I think with 13 there was a lot more different things to actually mess around with and get a right feel for. With this, it's kind of the content, and then there's essences, and then there's like not much else. So it wouldn't take as many builds, but yeah, I think 3 or 4 is probably the best.
Yeah. All right. So the other things that I pulled out, somebody asked about weather stock problems, and he said that there was a deliberate attempt by some individuals to cause bad things to happen, and that's all he's going to say about that. Yeah,
Right.
we experienced that when the server crashed. A lot of us noticed that just before that happened, there was a lot of rune keepers casting their stones around. So that might have had something to do with that.
Yes, that's the current suspicion on the matter. But since they don't like to discuss disciplinary actions on the boards and stuff like that, we obviously wasn't going to elaborate on any actions taken.
Yep. He was also asked what are the thoughts on making it possible for a hobbit to be a champion, and I was kind of surprised at this answer that they discuss opening up the race limitations for classes. I kind of just figured that they were just like, yep, that's how it is. So I was kind of surprised to hear that they do actually discuss changing
Yeah, but
that.
they've probably been discussing that for the last 5 years and decided not to do anything.
Yeah,
about
that's true. It's probably for all we know, like the discussion is every so often some developer is like, "Hey, wouldn't it be cool to have a Hobbit champion?" And someone's like, "Yeah," and then that's it.
Next.
And finally, he was asked how devs do all the research to make the new zone, and it's not surprisingly, it's basically they look through the books and they take the descriptions out of the books and they make the zones look like those descriptions. But apparently, some of the members of the development team are going to be at MythCon this year, and they're going to be doing a panel on taking the lore of Middle-earth and converting it into game form. So if you're in the area for MythCon, that would be a cool thing to go to.
And that's going to be in Norton, Massachusetts?
Yes, and it'll be August 8th to the 11th. I don't know which day specifically Turbine will be having their little panel, but that's happening.
And MythCon is a really, really big event. If you haven't ever gone before and you have the ability to, I would really recommend it because it's a cool little thing. And for those of you that read the MythMood article, no, it's not the same thing. MythCon is something else. So, but we'll get to that later in the show, I guess.
All right, very well. Now, Etheros, you also have a little something about Update 14 Build 2. Any interesting things in there?
Kind of.
Next.
Build 2 mainly added quite a few different class changes because there's a level cap going up, so they need to make more changes to the trait tree system. They've actually seemed to have added a second capstone for each line. At least it's what I noticed on my Lore Master, at least.
Second
I haven't played around with them much, but yeah, it's like a second one on the same level as the previous capstone, and it looks about the same potency.
You mean something even more powerful than Sikkim?
With the Keeper of Animals line, as you mentioned it, this other trait, for example, will give you a different stat boost depending on what pet you have summoned. So I think the bear gives you mitigation boost.
Okay.
Yeah, that sort of thing. They also added... actually, there's something worth mentioning is that the West Gondor has been added to the store on Borora, so you have to buy it now, presumably to test out functionality. But on Borora currently, the pricing for it is 795 turbine points, the same as Wildemore and Great River, I believe.
Yeah,
That seems very low.
It's not bad.
considering
Seems
that it mentions like what 120-ish quests. I think
over
that
120, as they say.
over 120. I think that that's a good number because usually they try to, at least in the store, they present it as not like zones or anything like that. They present it as quest numbers. So I think that that's a good price for that many quests. I don't think it's a good price for the amount of landscape that you're getting. I think it's a little bit
Yeah.
underpriced, to be honest.
I think overall it is fair. I think the
Mhm.
majority opinion on the forums at least seems to agree.
Yeah, it'll be
Although there
interesting though
was-
if it goes up because those War Steed prices for like the colors, the different colors, they
Oh.
were only $1, I believe, for a single
Yeah,
color, and then they
they're very
introduced
cheap in the store.
and then they
Cheap to
introduced the
start.
packs where you had to buy them together and pay like
Yeah.
$5 or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah,
$6
this is
now.
still Bora, so it's a work in progress, but
Right.
that is promising at least.
Now, I presume that if you're VIP, you don't have to worry about that.
Yep, this is, as they've mentioned, free to VIPs. The
Yeah.
Epic volume is also free to everyone.
Okay, just want to make sure that that functionality was working right in this build.
I couldn't tell you because I'm not VIP.
Okay, I guess I better.
It is because I can quest there.
Well,
Okay.
actually,
Oh.
usually in the beta version, except for in Helm's Deep, that's the only exception I've seen. They don't actually have it set up to where you have to buy the thing first because usually they get less people testing the side quests that way. So.
Yeah, they did it this time because I know I had to buy it.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, for the second
Cool.
beta round, they changed it so that non-VIPs had to buy it.
Good to
But
know.
Right,
it's
because they wanted to test to
Bull
make
Roar,
sure
so
that
you
it was
get free
working.
VIP. Yeah, but remember, for Bull Roar, everybody gets free turbine points, so it's not like you have to spend your real turbine points.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's
So that's
actually, if you try to spend your real turbine points, it actually will not let you on Bull. I found out the other day. So
Oh,
that's
really?
something. Yep, it actually gives a, it didn't used to do this, but now it gives a warning message saying, hey, you can't spend real money on Bull Roar. We don't want your money. Go away.
All right.
There were a couple of other things they did. The Welcome Back Weekend buff now also gives bonuses to a lot of various. I think previously it was just monster kills, if I remember right. And with this update, it's going to be crafting, quest completions, legendary item XP, and mounted combat XP.
Well, I'm sure it was always with crafting also ever since the ad, because that's crafting is treated like monster kills, but
I had
internally.
no idea. I haven't really used
Yeah,
it much, but
at least that's the way it's the experience I've had with it. But they're going to be a little bit more explicit with that, though. All right, and what about loot
something
boxes?
to make something to make Drac happy, I suppose. They've added a possible item drop from loot boxes that allows you to choose one of various different mounts, and you can pick whichever one you want, including the horse that he likes so much.
And I'll never get, but that's beside the point.
You'll never get one of these boxes, of course.
Of course not.
Because,
Of course.
Because the random number generator hates me. This is well established at this point.
yeah, I presume that the chances of getting a pick amount box is going to be about the same as it used to be in getting a red painted skeletal steed.
Mm-hmm. With regards to the landscape, they've generally polished up a lot of it. There's still quite a bit of flying rocks and stuff around, but the textures and a lot of the NPC models are in. The non-interactive NPCs have been added to a lot of the towns that were previously felt kind of empty. The armor sets that you could barter for in Dol Amroth have been updated with their cosmetic appearances, which Sithrith added screenshots
pretty.
there for you to look at. Mm-hmm.
They're very pretty, but they're not dyeable, so hopefully that changes.
Well, I have a feeling because of the colors of the city or the theme of the city or
Well,
something.
They mentioned
I mean,
that before.
They mentioned that before, but I don't think that really holds water with these armor sets because each of the three sets has very different color schemes. Like the heavy armor that I keep wanting to call the Swan Knight armor because it looks like the Swan Knight NPC.
It is pretty.
That's pretty much that looks like Dol Amroth city colors. It's all silvery and blue and whatever. Mm-hmm. But the medium armor set is just like black. It almost looks like a really dark colored Gray Company outfit.
Yeah, I
Or-
just think it's great company.
Yeah, and the light armor set is white, but it's also got like purple in it, which doesn't make sense for Dol Amroth that much. So I'm hoping that they add in the dyeability function.
The
Yeah,
And
it
also,
only-
I just want to note that this is the socketable armor that you can barter for, and it's based on the 3 armor classifications. These are not the class barterable armor sets, which do not have their cosmetics put in yet.
Mhm.
All right, and
The medium armor honestly looks a lot like out of the films, the stuff that Faramir and his company was wearing.
maybe that's why
The-
they
the
chose that
hoods do,
style.
yeah, I think. Yeah. They also added the new models for the ships. I think we kind of mentioned that in the videos that they seemed kind of pretty much a reskin of the Corsair one. They're a lot more updated now. So gotta go inside them, and they don't float. They just sort of stay there, but they look better.
I really hope they add some type of animation because it's like honestly, it doesn't take that much resource. I wouldn't think it'd take that much code to tell a ship to bob up and down in the water. You don't even have to have the water move around it. You can just have the ship move up and down, and that's good enough for me. But I do think it needs at least that. I don't think it should be static.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think they've ever done anything like that before in LOTRO.
Well, the thing is,
I can't think of any floating anything, actually.
Yeah, but if they can do like an elaborate Drake animation where he's like chewing down like an animal and then he walks away and does like the other stuff and then he flies up in the air and goes all over the place, surely they can cause a boat to bob up and down in the water. I'm just saying.
I think they could probably easily do it if you couldn't interact with it. If it was like invisible, you could just go straight through it. But having to go on it at the same time, it would probably be a bit more difficult.
Well, I mean, do that for the ships that are out there and then just say that the one in the harbor is really well secured to the dock.
I guess.
all right.
Singer from the
They
chat
also-
says that the purple-colored armor will allow you to become a people eater. Oh goodness!
Okay.
Just like to
They
point that out.
also redid the Ateland textures a bit because I think people kind of mentioned it looks almost exactly the same as Killendim and Duiland, except down here they kind of made it a bit more ruined and rubbly, I guess. The theme
Yeah, it
is still
looks
pretty much the same.
Overgrown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They also opened up the city. I think we kind of saw that before with the rubble blocking the passage. They opened it up. I think that's meant to be a server unlock. I believe so anyway. I'm not quite sure, but there are server unlocks with this update
Cool.
in certain areas.
I think
So that
that
seems like
server
one.
unlocks are the future of repeatable quest type things that people like. I think that gets people more interested than just like a height bulb.
People
thing.
want to see progress
Yeah.
of some
Yeah.
kind.
Not hype type progress though.
I think that just problem with that one. It just took too long in
Mm.
general.
Well, yeah, it did take a
Mhm.
little while.
And you have to redo it for every single character.
I can't
Well,
wait.
not really.
Oh yeah, true. But still, like with the server, it's like everybody's working together, so it's kind of like
Yeah.
I don't know.
So
More
the
communal
city I
effort.
just, the city I just checked around a bit looks much like the rest of the Path of the Dead, pretty creepy, especially the ghost banners, which make no sense at all.
Well,
I think that
ghost
was,
banners don't make sense.
Well,
Yeah, 'cause why would
no.
they be ghosts? Banners can't take oaths and then break them. Why would
Well,
banners be ghosts?
That,
To be a
that's
ghost,
yeah, but
you'd
they
have
did
to
the
be
same
alive
thing in
and then dead.
Enenwith. In Enenwith, they had ghost banners.
It didn't make sense there
Yes.
either.
Well, okay, just
I
I guess
was,
they're following precedents.
I think I was talking to this with Siswith about this like a few days ago, and I think she mentioned a film or documentary type thing that kind of related to this a bit. I don't remember what it was.
Oh
now.
yeah, In the Flesh, which is a BBC miniseries.
Yes, something about them gaining identity with being.
Yeah, it's like there's a zombie outbreak in Britain, and then they find a cure to like have them be back to normal. And some of them don't like taking the medicine because they identify with being undead, and so the restless undead in the Path of the Dead remind me of that.
It's pretty
Okay,
creepy
then.
when you think about it.
All
But yeah, it
right.
generally looks nicer now. There's still a lot of work to do, but I think a decent amount of progress has been made with this build.
All
Definitely.
right. Anyone else have any more comments on build 2 before we go on?
Lillicate says, what's the ETA basically on update 14? Well, assuming they have 2 more builds, that puts it right about July 14th, I would say.
Sounds about right, if that's how many builds they're going for.
Mm-hmm. So
We will
somewhere
see.
a week or, give a week on either end of July 14th, and that's about where they're saying it'll probably be.
So let's just say sometime in mid-July.
Yep.
All right. Very well. Then we'll go on then. And Sithrith, what about this new producer?
So Lotro, I guess, just got a new producer, not an executive producer, but a producer, and his name is Production Malfunction. And he
Which
recently,
gives you all sorts of confidence, by the way.
yeah, apparently he used to be a QA tester, so that makes sense. But yeah,
Again,
he's-
instills lots of confidence.
Spelling also.
Yeah, lots of K's. So he's been working for Turbine for a while, but he has recently been moved from DDO to Lotro. So he introduced himself on the forums, and then he made an interesting. He made another interesting post besides the like, "Hey, I exist in this game now" post. He asked for people to tell him what they like, what they don't like, what they want to see more of, what they want to see less of, because he's new and he says, like, he hasn't read everything. And he's like, he says, gamer to gamer, let's just have a conversation about the state of the game from your point of view. Remember, I'm new here. I don't know what was promised in the past or what was flatly denied, although I do know the current executive producer's wishes too. So it's basically just an open thread for people to air their grievances or say, like, hey, I really like this, do more of this. And it's also good because he's been coming back and asking follow-up questions. Like, a lot of people were saying, we want more endgame. And so then he's like, well, what does that mean specifically? Like, do you mean raids and instances, or do you mean repeatable whatever? So he's been coming back and he's been having discussions with players, and it's caused quite a heated debate, apparently. This whole thread. I thought us might be able
A
to
thread like
touch
that,
on that.
heated debate.
I'd rather
I'm
not,
shocked.
to be honest, but anyone
Okay.
who's been on the forums knows what would spring from this.
Yeah.
He's
I'll say
obviously
that.
new. He's obviously new if he's asking for an open discussion.
I'm glad that he is, though. Fredulous from the chat
Yeah.
says, a live producer, yay! A QA person is exactly the right person to promote into that position. And I agree with him. That's definitely a good thing. We definitely need more public-facing people at Turbine.
Definitely.
Just hope he knows what he's in for.
But he was from the DDO team, I think, when I looked into it. So.
Yeah.
I think he says that
think
he's worked
he-
on both over time.
Yeah, so I think he's come over with Rowan, and it seems like a lot of other people have as well. So it seems like that it's just kind of a migration of that team over to Lotro, a little bit. Not everybody, obviously, but there's a continual stream of people, it seems, coming over from the DDO team.
And a lot of times when somebody high up moves over and gets promoted, he will handpick a team to eventually move over with him, the folks that
Yeah.
he knows are good. So that could be what's happening here too.
Yeah, and it makes sense because Rowan's been really communicative to the community, and now this guy seems to have the same kind of mindset, so it makes sense.
And that's really cool. I mean, it's great news for Lotro, I think, that Rowan or somebody over at Warner Brothers is, it seems like they're hand-picking people, or maybe the people are volunteering from the DDO team, and so I think that's allowing a lot of high-quality people move over and join the Lotro team, so that's exciting news, I think, for Lotro.
Yeah, I think Roger mentioned this in one of his comments on this article, that it'd be better to wait and judge whether this actually ends up bearing any fruit,
Yeah.
so to speak.
Well,
Which I
I
think
mean, he
is-
does say in the post, like, this isn't like a promise that I'm going to do the things that people are saying. It's just to get additional
Right,
thoughts, I
and
suppose.
there's been a lot of Turbine people who have been public-facing for a month or 6 months or a year, and then you just kind of don't hear about them from after that. So It'll be interesting to see what happens here.
I think what this really shows is that they are listening. I think what remains to be seen is whether they're actually going to act on anything that they've heard.
Yep. That's pretty much it. There's a difference between listening and acting on the feedback itself.
Or getting on their knees and obeying their players' every command.
That too.
Yeah. Very well. Let's go to the store sales. Draculetta.
Or maybe not
You there?
Might be
Dracula.
muted.
Let me take myself off of mute and see how that works out.
Okay.
No,
Every
Drac, you
time,
really,
Drac.
you really
Every
don't need to
time.
mute yourself that much. I mean,
Well, let's try this again. Free sample of the week. A third age item trove. One of those per account. Use coupon code TROVE, TROVE6. TROVE6. And if you don't know what that is, it delivers a box of unidentified third age legendary weapons or items, and you can pick one out of the box and level it as you see fit. So it basically gives you a third age item to level.
A box
Right.
of legendary items.
Yeah, I'm just going to move on. 25% off. Select cosmetics, shared wardrobe, cosmetic outfit slots, mounted combat trade specs, and war steed cosmetic slots. All 25% off this week.
20%. Is it 20? Oh, 25%. Never mind. Yeah, you're right. I was looking
My
reading
kind
the
of
wrong one.
sale.
Yes, that's a silver sale.
Yeah, and I was going to look back and I didn't have time to do it. I was going to look to see the last time shared wardrobe has been on sale. It has been a while, I think.
It has.
yeah.
So it's always good to see that, and the cosmetic outfit slots too, if that's your thing, which it just so happens to be. So I'm sure you probably bought.
I'm
Well,
already
she
maxed
probably
out
bought-
for.
Oh, you're maxed out. Well, yeah, of course you would.
Cosmetic slots and.
I thought she was going to say that she bought so much that she took advantage of the buy 3,000 turbine points worth, and you get 30% off of your purchase.
No, I'm already maxed out at all my cosmetic slots.
Of course you are. And then also, I'll go ahead and include this. Technically, Brax posted this story, but it kind of falls under the store. Through June 29th, you can get a 1-year VIP subscription for $79.99 if you're in the U.S. It's $63.99 if you're in Europe, and pounds, it's $71.99. So that breaks out to about $6.70 a month, which is a pretty amazing deal.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I can't believe that they're actually doing this good of a deal when they're having a greater focus on VIPs. I think that it's just a brilliant marketing strategy, and I'm worried about the cost of Bjornings now with this good of a deal.
Now, when I saw, actually, this reminds me a little bit of the deal on DDO that had me subscribing there.
I believe that if you are currently subscribed, you can still take advantage of this offer, and it will just tack the 12 months on the end of your
You
subscription.
can, and in fact, I did that this week.
That's
so
what I was
recommend
just
everybody
about
does
to ask, because mine is coming up July. I have to renew it.
Yeah, it's a little bit weird how you have to go about it. Like, it's not the most obvious way of doing it if you're already a VIP. And honestly, I couldn't repeat how you do it. But it's not too bad if I remember right. So
Okay. Very well. Then we will go on. That concludes the game news. So let's go into the LOTRO players news. And we'll begin with a poll where there was a question on, will you buy Update 14's Quest Pack? And the answers to this is, there was no, I am VIP, I get it for free, which is 46% of the votes. We had 216 votes, so almost half of them said they're already VIP.
yeah, I mean, I realize that LOTRO players probably attracts more VIP people to the site.
Oh.
but because they're a little bit more, they're devoting a lot more money to the game, they're probably going to look and get more involved with the game. That's not true, obviously, because it's only 46%. But I'm wondering if LOTRO's player population is really accurate to that number. But I was surprised that 46% though answered with VIP.
Did you want to say something, Drac?
Yeah, I forgot to mention too. I didn't put it in the show notes. Also, through this weekend, June 22nd, it's a determine your discount deal in the store. If you spend 1,000 turbine points, you get 10% off. If you spend 2,000 turbine points, you can get 20% off. And if you spend 2,500 turbine points, you get 30% off. So if you have a bunch of points to spend and you want to stack your cart full and get it to somewhere around that, you can get some pretty good, amazing deals. But that is through this weekend only.
And
Yeah.
for the prepaying VIP, Linda from the chat says that somebody already learned that it does not stack beyond the 1 year, so you can only get it for 1 year. Those of you that were trying to stack it for multiple years. So.
All right. We then had, all right, 46% said no, they're already VIP. 28%, so that's a little bit more than a quarter, said yes. So let's say about half said they're already VIP. Then a quarter said yes. Then 16% said waiting to see the cost. So I'm wondering if it is $7.95, how many of those waiting to see the cost would be saying yes or no. 4% said waiting for more information. I don't know what other information other than the cost they'd be waiting for.
Well, some people don't watch, the news on purpose and things like that. I think Lillicate was one of the people who waited for more information because she wasn't following it too closely on purpose.
All right, I guess you got a point there. And no, I just played the Epic Story and it's free for this update. That was 4%. And 2% had a flat no and didn't give a reason for it.
Can I just say I'm surprised that, first of all, only 12 people said outright no, and 8 people, so more people said that they just played the Epic Story than said just no. That's kind of surprising to me. I'm surprised how many people that voted in this poll that just play the Epic.
Or intend to just play the Epic.
Or intend to just play the Epic.
I suppose this question doesn't mean much to people on this call since I think most of you are VIP or lifetime.
Yeah,
Nope.
VIP, lifetime, and some people I think are also pay for the content but are probably going to pay for it regardless, so.
Yeah, I have enough turbine points saved up that I was going to buy no matter what, but 795 is pretty reasonable, so
yeah,
it's
and
easy for me.
we're thinking about, and this may or may not happen depending on if we can think up questions or not, but we're thinking about having a poll every week in addition to the store sale poll that happens on Thursdays. We're thinking about having a Sunday poll that goes up on Sundays for different questions about LOTRO, so let us know if you want to see more of these. I was surprised that we had 216 votes on our first one of these, so thank you everyone who voted.
So that means there's a chance that we'll be seeing another one tomorrow then?
Yes, and in fact I already got it set up, but you'll have to wait and see the question. Mostly because I don't know it off the top of my head.
All right, there we go. Very well. Now, do you think 14 is a 5-level update?
Well, Pineleaf, why do you think I would know the answer to that kind of a question?
Maybe you wrote an article on it.
Yeah, maybe. I'd seen a lot of people being concerned about, is update 14 actually a 5-level update, or is it like a Wildermore or something like that? Is it half an expansion, or is it just a little zone update? And I decided to actually write up an article about this because there were enough people asking. I figured that I'd at least have somewhere to direct them to with a well-written answer, at least what I considered a well-written answer. As for update 14 itself, it honestly feels to me like half of the Riders of Rohan expansion. Not Helm's Deep, because I think that landscape's probably a little bit bigger. But it feels like about half the size of a Riders of Rohan expansion. And since the expansion was 10 levels and this one's only 5 levels, it seems about perfect at first glance. But at the same time, we don't know how many quests are going to be in this area really. And there was never the filler zone as well, so that we didn't have a Wildermoor between Helm's Deep and this update, whereas normally we have a filler zone between the two expansions, whereas this time I'm considering this update as almost like half an expansion because of the way that it's set up. And so that kind of takes away players' options because they're not going to be able to choose between Wildermoor and a part of Rohan. And so if it really comes down to how many quests are there and how much XP it'll get, so it's a little bit too early to tell. But for example, with some expansions, the players that were at level cap, and I think this happened with either Rise of Isengard or Riders of Rohan, where the players who were already at level cap didn't actually have enough XP to get to the cap of the new level cap through just doing the quests. They actually came, I think, like a level or two short. Like it was a significant
That was Rise of Isengard because the XP from the quests wasn't scaling properly.
That's right, yeah. But
well, they must have fixed it later because I had no trouble with my later
did, like
character.
a few weeks after it.
Yep. So I'm hoping that with this update that there will be the appropriate number of quests, but if we take just the landscape mass, I think that if they fill it out like they normally do, there is plenty for a 5-level increase. It's just that we will not have the options to choose where we go if we want to do a zone that skips this update because there's no filler zone this year. Unless you consider update 13, but that was such a pitiful thing aside from the repeatables. So,
right, and even Turbine called that just a sliver.
Yeah, so what do you guys think? Atheros, do you think it's a 5-level update?
I haven't played around with the actual quests and stuff because I wanted to save that for live. But looking at, I think as a zone, it feels more like an expansion type area than one that's more meant to just fill in the gaps between major like plot areas. So to me, yeah, it feels more like an East Rohan than a Great River, for example.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't really say in terms of content because I prefer not to do it in beta because it kind of spoils it for me on live.
Yeah, I definitely have the same philosophy. Sithirth, what do you think?
Having done some of the quests, I feel like it's more like a 4-level zone or like a 4-level update. Like there's plenty of quests and stuff, and I'm sure there's gonna be more because I haven't gotten all the way through the zones and I've kind of run out of quests. But I don't know. It like the landscape is really big and that's nice, but I don't know. Based on the quests so far, it seems more like a 3 or 4 level update. But again, I'm pretty sure they're still adding in more quests, and I know they have disabled some of the quest lines because they've been bugged out. So we'll see.
Right, and they said, like, I believe with Helm's Deep, wasn't there like almost 400 quests or something like that?
Yeah, some real high number like that.
Yeah, so I mean, you take half of that, and that's almost 200. And this, it says in the store that it's only 120. Now that's Bulwark, it can change. They might be a lot more quests that actually come with it, but it seems kind of silly that they just pick a number and put it in there if it's not correct. So.
Right.
Bear in mind, there's also the end game thingy kind of.
Oh yeah, there's like 2 end gamey things where like there's a cave and there's the Path of the Dead City, and I don't really know if they're gonna work.
Right, and with Riders of Rohan, didn't it take you to 94 and then you did Heightbolt to get to 95?
84 and 85, but
Or
yeah.
84, yeah. And then it took you to 85. So it might be a similar thing here where it is a 4 level update and then you get the end game that takes you to the final area. But I do think that there, at least by landmass, that there is enough room. Does anybody else disagree, or are we good to move on? Alright,
I
Silence
guess that
says we're
means
good
we
to
can
go.
move on. Very well. Then we'll head into our report from Weatherstock 6, which obviously that was posted by Lily Kate, but Lily Kate seems to be having a little trouble with her sound system. So I presume that she's off the line now.
Yeah, she is.
I'll take that as
But she does do a very, very nice write-up here. The main reason that I included these is just to guide people who want to see what happened at Weatherstock and learn about everything that was there. If you missed the event, this is a great thing to go to. Or if you just want to watch them again, because it does have all 3 parts of our 7 to 8 hour stream that went on forever. But I'm sure it didn't feel like that when you were watching it. But just watch it in spurts. That's why it's in different parts, so that you don't have to sit down and watch it all at once. But I definitely recommend everyone at least checks out part 3 because that's when we were already at the concert and there's some really, really good bands there. So yeah, just a little bit of a recap about Weatherstock for those that didn't get to go.
And we also have the latest installment of Where's Tinky? In this case, it's Where's Tinky Weatherstock, where instead of our usual stand-in for Tinky, we, I presume, have the real Tinky in there. And you're trying to identify how many Tinkies are in the picture and which of the Tinkies is the real one.
That's pretty meta.
Yes, that's right, because obviously the crew, the vendoring crew, did dress up like Tinky, so therefore there will be a number of vendors in there dressed in the standard Tinky stuff. And you have to see how many vendors are in there essentially. And okay, you could tell an elf from a hobbit probably, but when you have 2 or 3 hobbits in the picture, you're trying to say, okay, which one's the real Tinky? And I don't know if anyone is confident that they've got them all right. Because
Well, I do, because the answers are at the top of the article now.
They are?
Because it's been out long enough. Yep. She puts those up at the once it's been out long enough, or maybe that's from last time. But
I think that's last time because usually she puts the old ones up.
That's right.
There.
But I'm just gonna wait till the next article comes out so I don't embarrass myself then.
Yeah, I would say that most likely trying to guess it now is going to be guaranteeing of some sort of embarrassment. So we'll go on to Cithrit's article, who was appropriately for the upcoming update, doing a Citizen of Gondor.
Yeah, in my Dol Amroth video, Tim, recommended that I do an outfit for Swan Knight, which on live with the current armor that's available is more difficult than it sounds. And so I got really frustrated, but I really wanted to do a Gondor themed outfit. So I ended up doing an outfit based on the NPCs that are wandering around in Dol Amroth and the other various Gondorian cities. There were a lot of like whites and grays and blacks and like kind of muted steel blue color. So I went with the robe of leisure, dyed steel blue, and some, fitting accessories for it.
Yeah, I heard a rumor that you like steel blue.
Yes. I don't know what gave you that idea, except for like my past 4 or 5 outfits have all been entirely steel blue.
Can I just say that this is by far the most impressive outfit you've done so far, because there's nothing Gondor that's really in the game right now. And you were able to find something that looks like it was designed by Turbine to be an outfit for the game. And honestly, this is just amazing. And I am going to get me one of those because just maybe a guy version, but it's
Well,
really,
Probable
really
Leisure
good.
is unisex, so there you go.
Awesome.
Maybe for a lore master.
Yep.
Yes, maybe not so much for a champion. I might get laughed at by
Yeah.
the orcs.
Hopefully, if they add those update 14 cosmetic ones to being dyeable, you'll be able to use those in different combinations.
Oh, I've already got so many plans for those aspects.
Yes. All right. Now, Andang, you have your LOTRO video highlights, The Witch King?
That's right, Pine Leaf, and this week is basically it's from the Beyond the Shadows behind the scenes thing from the collector's edition of the original Shadows of Angmar. And basically, what this shows is the basically the thought process behind bringing the Witch King into the this part of the Third Age, into Lord of the Rings Online, and basically bringing him into a place that he's not supposed to be. And watching through this video, I think that it definitely gives you a lot more respect for their choice because it's clearly a very, very well thought out decision. The main reason that I got from it, at least, was that Sauron is a really long way away, and because they're starting their game in Eriador, there really isn't that much threat, and so they had to create a threat, obviously, which is the Witch King, and it shows a whole lot of concept art and various things like that. I really recommend anyone that is interested in the epic story or just interested in Angmar or the Witch King to check this out because it's a really cool behind the scenes process.
And of course, it's very in with the lore with the Witch King being a bit of a threat, seeing how he is a threat in the early chapters of The Lord of the Rings.
That's right. He's everywhere in Turbine's world, apparently.
Well, yes. I mean, everyone's afraid of the Witch King. Well, except for Eowyn, perhaps. Yes.
And maybe Gandalf and Saruman's
Glorfindel
probably
and Aragorn.
Sauron
Yeah,
and
okay,
Saruman
maybe
probably
a
aren't
couple.
afraid, and a few others probably.
All right. Now, Citrus, what is this view of Lamadon?
This is my second Update 14 video trailer kind of video. My first one was the Dol Amroth video from the week before. This is pretty much in a similar style. Nice, glowy, warm vignette filter over some choice shots of the Lamadon region in Beta 1. So this video is not current for Beta 2. So keep that in mind. Things have been more updated since then. I'll probably end up doing a full Update 14 trailer once the beta is at a close, I suppose.
All
Yeah.
right.
Lots of beacons.
Yeah,
Lots
the
of
beacons
beacons.
are
I know.
amazing.
I know the video isn't current because one of those towns you visited is rather less wholesome than it is in that one.
Yeah.
All right. And very well. Brax, what is your pick of the week?
I think a couple podcasts ago, I mentioned Simcha, somebody I met on the Newbie Blogger Initiative who is hearing impaired and plays MMOs. And over at XP Chronicles, Dune Woodtack wrote up a post that was kind of inspired by his talking to Simcha about some of her experiences in the game. And one of the things that came about from that conversation that he had never thought of was what the effects of this kind of movement from the traditional means of communicating within an MMO, which is the kind of typing in the text box, to a voice chat system, is that people who are hearing impaired are kind of excluded from that entire conversation, which in an MMO is pretty bad because if you can't communicate, it's very hard to not only play the game but feel a part of the community, which is kind of the point of playing in the first place for a lot of people. So kind of an interesting post, just him reflecting on how he can be more inclusive when he's playing, what kinds of limitations even using the text box to communicate can put out there for people who either aren't good at multitasking or just can't type very well or very fast to keep up with the pace of the game. A little bit of reflection on that. And as I was kind of reading through his article, I was wondering about how LOTRO, or the people that play LOTRO, typically communicate with other folks in their group, and what do they use that communication for? Or do they use it for instances in rating? Do they use it for social? I know personally, I usually prefer to use the text box for chat. Occasionally I'll use voice, but that's only when we really feel like we need a coordinated effort to do something that's very timing specific. Otherwise, I just find it almost more of a hassle to figure out a voice program that's going to work for everybody. That's not going to, I guess there is an in-game one, but I've never been a big fan of that. Right. So I guess I typically use it for the purposes of socializing. Every once in a while, I'll be doing an instance with somebody, and we'll use it to say, "Hey, watch out for this guy over here," or whatever. But for the most part, it's just a tool for keeping up with people in the kin and seeing what's going on tonight. So I was just wondering how you guys communicate with folks in your kinships and what you use that communication for, and have you ever considered how it could be potentially exclusionary to folks?
Right, very well.
Finally.
All right. We'll begin with Ethero, since he was getting ready to start.
I presume they were waiting for someone to say something. So, for me, the only time I really talk to people in LOTRO these days is when we're doing adventures, and obviously they're using Skype for the call. But I will occasionally use kin chat if someone's asking a question, such thing. But other than that, I don't really use much of any chat at all.
All right, ending.
Well, I'll just say basically my normal, so to speak, gaming. Before I was part of LOTRO Players and CSTM, I was mostly using, I think our kin used TeamSpeak, and we also used chat, and that was basically the majority of how we spoke was through just text chat. And I think that it can be very effective, and obviously by using one type of chat, just using text chat, well, you're also, I guess you're not excluding blind people, but maybe people who don't know how to read English, for example. They might be on an English server, but they can only read Spanish or some other language, and they're playing LOTRO. And so I can see how that could be cause exclusion as well. So I think that it's good for any kinship that's really serious and has been around for a bit and become friends with people. Then you get a voice server and you get things like that, so that you can be more exclusionary, and you get closer bonds, I think, by being able to chat in multiple ways, I think, as well.
All right, very well. Drac?
Mainly kin chat and Vent and Skype.
All right, kinship, Skype. All right, and let's see, Sithrith.
I usually prefer to use the chat box, but my kinship on Winfola has a Ventrilo server that we use, and we pretty much always, even sometimes if we're not in game, we use that to just chat and catch up, which is nice. But yeah, I don't really like to talk to people in game unless I know them and they're in my kin or something. So.
All right. Now, in my case, I tend to use a different means of communication all over the place for many different areas. For example, on my Sunday skirmish group, we use in-game chat. For the field trip with the academy, we use something called Raid Call, which I'm not a big fan of Raid Call, but I believe Mystery has trouble with with using any other chat program on her computer at the same time she's playing LOTRO, which is why we wind up using that. And with the Friday night group, the one on Silverload, we use Skype. So we have 3 different voice communication programs I use. I very rarely use the chat because I don't know, I get fumble fingered when I try to do it. And if I am trying to do something at the same time I need to type something, it never goes well. And that's the trickiest thing is my hands usually aren't necessarily going to be free in order to type in something. So that's my biggest problem there. And I don't know how some people solve that problem. I guess never do anything while they're trying to type.
It
Type
takes a little
quickly.
bit of practice, but if you do it enough, you get used to it. But it is definitely causes you to stop whatever you're doing in game. I mean, a little bit, because you can't, press skills with the key buttons when you're typing a message and stuff like that. So
Right.
it changes things a bit.
You almost got to just sit over on auto attack while you're doing that and hope for the best.
That's why it's good to be a captain. Lots of skill cooldowns.
Yeah, All right. Anyone else have any more comments on this particular issue? Anything else on your side, Brax?
Nope. Just think of others and I guess be cognizant of the way you're communicating.
All right, very well. And Dang, would you like to introduce our new segment?
Yes, Pineleaf, we actually have a new segment, which I guess hasn't been that long since we got the newest one, which was Question of the Week. But basically, with LOTRO players, we've kind of gotten to where, without getting burnt out on stuff, we're kind of to the point where we can't really cover that much else because we're already covering most of the LOTRO news, aside from PvP. But we still have Ethelros who will write about the changes to that stuff, and raiding we don't really talk about that much. But Turbine hasn't really been supporting those very much the last little while, and so I think that it's hard to get people who really want to actively write about it when the system's not really being as supported by Turbine anymore. And so those are 2 areas that we could probably use a little bit of growth in, but we decided that we'd actually focus on continuing to expand LOTRO players. And so we decided to start covering news that's still within Tolkien, but that is actually beyond LOTRO, and so that's why there's a new tab on the category bar at the top of the page called Beyond LOTRO. And basically this is a place where we can cover just about anything that we as writers on LOTRO players find interesting within the broader Tolkien universe. And this week we actually had quite a lot of articles because there's actually been a lot of Tolkien news between E3 and various other things that are going on. And also these articles seem to be pretty popular as well, and so it seems like people are really liking this, and which makes sense because I think a lot of people that play LOTRO, particularly the ones that go to websites to find out more information about them and listening to podcasts to find out more information about them, probably like Tolkien to some degree, and so probably want to hear about other stuff that's going on within the broader universe. And I've seen already a lot of comments of people saying, wow, I would have never found out about this if you guys hadn't written it. So I think that this is going to be really successful. So we're still going to have our primary focus be on LOTRO. We're LOTRO players, that's in our core. But we also want to help prevent us from getting burnt out on covering LOTRO, also cover some other stuff so that we can continue to expand the site and also bring you the audience stuff that you probably want to find out about within the Tolkien universe. So that's kind of why we're doing this, Pineleaf.
All right, very well. So what is it about the history of the Nazgul?
Yes, well, this was actually a segment that we had scheduled to go out before we decided to expand, where it's actually some of the lore behind the Nazgul, and it goes pretty in depth. And this is actually going to be a multi-part series. I think he has. I can't tell you off the top of my head, but it's more than 2 parts. So expect some more of these coming out in the near future. But it goes through some of the history in the Second Age and the returning of the Nine in the Third Age. And moreover, there's some fantastic concept art and screenshots in this, and it's just a great little lore summary behind the Nazgul. I recommend everybody check out this article.
All right, thank you. And next we have something about a lost poem.
That's right, Pineleaf. Middle Earth Network actually had someone approach them. I'm not going to try to pronounce the name. You can read the article to find it out. Where they actually approached them with a 1958 speech that was given by J.R.R. Tolkien. And it's a audio recording that was basically lost to time, and it was kept by this person who just held on to it basically in their keeping for years and years. And it's a really old recording. It's on an old magnetic tape, and Middle Earth Network's basically working to restore this poem so that it actually has great audio quality and removes all the stuff from the really old magnetic tape. And there's 2 videos in this article that have some of the poem in them. Of Tolkien speaking, and one of them is actually a interview that John DiBartolo had, which is the founder of Middle Earth Network. He actually had a interview on InfoWars, which is a fairly popular radio slash web series that is pretty popular. And the this news has actually made it onto the Huffington Post. If you can believe that. So it's made mainstream media, and it's actually gaining a really lot of momentum. And as many of you know, we're part of LOTRO. We at LOTRO Players are part of Middle Earth Network, and so it's really cool to see something like this getting mainstream coverage, and seeing Tolkien news besides the commercialized films actually getting really big media coverage.
All right. Now, concerning this poem, is only the reading lost, or is the poem itself also something that...
I believe the poem itself was also something that had been lost, because there's actually a speech, and then there's I think like 20 minutes of a speech, and then like 5 minutes of a poem or something like that. And so there's like a lot of content, and one thing that I've heard is that it's actually the most, or at least close to the most animated Tolkien's actually been in an audio recording before. So he gets really passionate in the speech. And that's why a lot of people are really excited about it, because it's a Tolkien that we haven't really heard before. And it's definitely exciting news.
All right, thank you. And what about Mythmoot?
Yes, Pineleaf. Mythmoot 3 registration has opened. He's all in a row for me.
Someone's writing in these articles.
I thought I had him switching between myself and Sithirth, but apparently not. So Mythmoot 3 registration has opened, and as someone who actually went to the first Mythmoot, I cannot recommend it enough. Basically, this is an event that's held by the Tolkien professor, or at least the internet celebrity Dr. Corey Olsen, that's known as the Tolkien professor. He actually has the most popular educational podcast on iTunes, which not a lot of people realize just how big his podcast gets out to. And basically, Mythmoot is a chance to watch the Hobbit film with friends, and then talk about it, and also with fellow friends and people that are willing to go, hundreds of miles just to go to a conference, and it's something that's unlike anything else. Plus, you get to meet the Tolkien professor if you're a fan of his podcast, and just get to have a lot of fun throughout the day. And last year, I was unable to go, but they actually had John DiBartolo, who we mentioned earlier in the show, who's actually the founder of the Real Life Lonely Mountain Band and the Kinship in Game, and also Tolkien artist Jeff Murray and Ted Naismith were also two of the people in attendance who are huge Tolkien artists. Ted Naismith, real quick aside, is actually the only artist who had his works purchased by Tolkien himself. And he was actually fairly young at the time because he's not too old right now. And he just does fantastic artwork. And he was there last year, and they're expecting more guests and probably a lot of the same returning guests as well this next year. So I can't recommend this event enough. It'll be a lot of fun. If you're a Tolkien fan, I highly recommend it. Even if you don't like the films that much, there were several people at the first one who didn't like it either, and they got to talk about everything that was wrong with the film and had a lot of fun doing that. So even if you don't like the Peter Jackson films, it's still a lot of fun hanging out with fellow Tolkien fans.
Okay, I have a question.
Mhm.
Is this held at the same place every year, or is this move around?
Well, they've been talking about moving it around, but because Corey actually lives in Baltimore, Maryland, or at least in the Baltimore, Maryland area, they decided to just keep it there for now. It might move around later in the future, but the main reason why they're keeping it on the East Coast is because there's people. He actually has about even fans in Europe as he does in the States, and so that's why they're trying to make it be, and these are his words, equally far for everyone to travel to the event. So it's
Or
not
especially far.
it's not the
for
best for
those
people on the West Coast and East Coast, and especially for New Zealand. But yeah, so this is definitely a good event though, if you
I
can
guess
make
I
it.
had never noticed where I did not look at where it was the last couple of years, so
So what
I
you're
did
saying,
not realize.
Pineleaf, is that we could have met at the first one if I would have told you?
Well, yeah, it's just a hop, skip, and a jump where I am.
All right, so might be able to meet Pineleaf there at Nuclear 3. There you go.
LOTRO players meet up.
That's right.
Yeah, because that's. I used to every week go to a D&D game in Baltimore, so obvious this is closer than that. So.
All right, there you go. Maybe being able to meet Pineleaf at Mythmoot 3. So registration is open. Hurry and get your spot to possibly meet Pineleaf. There you go.
Now they're running away. Yes.
Now you're gonna have like 100 people at Mythmoot that are just asking for you to laugh, Pineleaf. They'll just follow you around, waiting for you to laugh.
All right. Real life Sithrit, what is this about Hobbiton?
Right, so I'm with the whole Beyond LOTRO segment thing on LOTRO Players. I'm starting a new article series called Real Life LOTRO because I live in New Zealand, and so there's lots of film locations here. In fact, all of the film locations are here. So I've been to a number of them, and some of them, like Hobbiton, I've been to multiple times, and so I figured people would be interested in seeing some of the pictures. So this first article is from July 2010. Well, not the article, but the pictures are from July 2010, when they had just started rebuilding the Hobbiton set in Matamata, New Zealand, and it was so cool to be able to see this whole thing under construction. Like, I was just super excited, even just to see the like plain white plywood fronts that they had before. But then when we got there and they started handing out these confidentiality agreement notices, that was super exciting. I was really
presume
excited.
that they've expired by now.
Yes, they expired, I think, the March before the first Hobbit movie came out. So it's been a couple years now.
Okay.
So I'm good. I'm not gonna get in trouble. I'm not gonna like get sent away. But
All right.
so yeah, this first one has lots of pictures of under construction Hobbit holes. You can see people painting all the stuff. One thing that I thought was really cool that I learned on this is that like even the stuff like in one of the pictures you can see a chimney and there's like soot all over the top of the chimney. Like they have to hand paint all that soot. Or some of the frames around the doors and windows, you can see like a teal kind of like lichen or like a moss that grows sometimes in places, and that is also all like really hand painted. Like that's just little tiny dots of paint that's supposed to look like moss. So I was really blown away by the craftsmanship that they were putting into these hobbit holes, and they were making them so that they're permanent. So it's a thing, like it's a permanent thing now. Like there's not just white plywood fronts. So the next article in the series for next week is going to be more construction pictures, but further along in the process.
All right.
And
very
I have
well.
to say, I'm just blown away by these. That's so cool that you're able to see the actual sets in construction. I mean, that's amazing. And it seems like a lot of other people did as well, because believe it or not, this is actually more popular than any of the Update 14 articles have been on our site. So people are really, really liking this construction of the Hobbit sets. So if you have not seen this yet, I recommend that you do. There's some really cool shots in here.
Right. Thank you very much. Now, this next one is a little thing by the Brothers Workshop, which, if you've never heard of them, then that is definitely a YouTube site to subscribe to. They have these Lego and clay animations that they do, and they are always hilarious, and it's always a parody of something such as Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, and Star Wars are some of the ones that I see most often on them, and every single one has me laughing out loud whenever I see them. And the latest one here is the fall of Isengard. How did Isengard really fall?
I don't know, Pineleaf, but what I do know is if that you're going to Mythmoot 3 and you see Pineleaf, you can play the Brotherhood Workshop pictures, and he said it's a guaranteed laugh every time. So there is some serious possibilities here now that we really understand how to make Pineleaf laugh. So. But
all right.
in all seriousness, Brotherhood Workshop is fantastic every time, as Pineleaf said. My favorite one is the Tom Bombadil one. I'm not going to spoil anything about it, but just look it up. It's amazing, and I can't wait. Every time I see that in my little subscriber feed that Brotherhood Workshop has a video, that's usually the first one I watch because I know it'll be really, really high quality. And this time was great as well, so I recommend everybody checks it out if you haven't seen it yet.
I think the fish really got to me in this one.
Yeah.
All right. And Sithrith, you were taking a look at Middle-earth's Shadow of Mordor, and what did you think about that?
Well, Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor is a new game that is being developed right now. It's set to come out in October of this year, and it's basically like a third-person action game for Xbox 360, Xbox One, PS3, PS4, and PC. And it takes some of the gameplay elements of things like Assassin's Creed and the Arkham Asylum type games, and they kind of put it into Middle-earth, sort of. And basically you play as this Gondorian ranger named Talion, who is tasked with guarding the Black Gate. And this is set to take place between The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. So, that have that time frame in mind. And basically you and your whole family are killed, but at the last minute, a wraith comes in and enters your body and saves you. I can't even say it with a straight face. You can obviously tell how I feel about that, but
way beyond LOTRO.
Yeah,
Yes.
way beyond LOTRO. Possibly beyond Tolkien in general. But Yeah, so that happens, and then you have wraith-like abilities that let you control orcs and see their relationship to other orcs and stuff like that. So basically, your goal is to, I guess, amass a orc army using your wraith abilities. And
That's what they're selling it as.
yeah, we'll leave that to just be that. But the really interesting thing about this game is the Nemesis system, which is a really, I feel like, mostly unprecedented game system that they've come up with. Basically, every orc will remember its previous interactions with you. So, like, for example, if you like cut off an orc's arm or something and then like leave it, it'll remember that you cut off its arm and will like try to exact revenge. Other orcs, like some orcs have different personalities. So like some are more cowardly orcs and will try to run away from you. Some of them are more bold and will try to like, kill you because it's an orc. Yeah, so you use these personalities and these relationships to help you like amass your army and kill the ones that you need to kill.
Yeah, and when they I agree that it's way outside Tolkien, but when they announced this, the main thing, because they showed the Nemesis system off from the beginning. The main thing people were saying in reaction to this was this is the first title that is next gen, because the Nemesis system is something that really can't, I mean, it could be possible in previous generations, but it'd be very, very hard to do. And this is something that, using the horsepower that they have, they can actually store all these different enemies and their backstories, and actually have what you do to them actually affect things that are going on in Mordor even long after you've interacted with them. And I think that it's definitely a really promising system and could revolutionize a lot of the gaming industry and the way that we tell stories in these kind of open world games.
All right.
That being said, it's not Tolkien.
No, it's totally ridiculous.
Yes, perhaps a little bit so. All right. Now we'll go into, yes, believe it or not, we are introducing not one, but two new segments tonight. And our second new segment is called the Starter Zone. And Brax, could you please explain what this is all about?
Sure. The Starter Zone came about after some conversations that we were having, and we were talking about how some of us used to listen to LOTRO podcasts when we first started getting into the game, CSTM, LOTRO Reporter, and others. And it was great to listen to the podcasts, but since the hosts were typically high level or capped, they assumed that their audience knew some things that potentially we didn't, because we were brand new to the game. And a lot of people who play LOTRO are also brand new to MMOs in general. And we kind of talked about how we kind of fall into that as well, because I think everybody on this call has some capped tunes, at least one, probably multiple in a lot of cases. And so when we talk about stuff, it's typically things that are closer to end game or the high level areas, and we don't necessarily always stop to explain some of the things we're talking about. And knowing that some of our audience is new players to LOTRO and new players to MMOs, we thought we'd have a little section in the podcast, very short, nothing that's going to drag out too long, that kind of explains a few of the concepts at a very basic level to kind of get people started. The intent is not to overlap what LOTRO Academy does, which is an entire hour-long podcast dedicated to beginner topics and teaching topics, but potentially just give little bite-sized segments of knowledge to people so that they can get going. And if there is a topic that we're going to hit on that LOTRO Academy covers in more depth, we'll point you to that episode so that if you decide you want to learn a little bit more about it, you can go download that and listen to it. So for tonight, I wanted to cover the question of DPS. Now, there's a very easy answer to what DPS is. It is a stat that exists on your weapons, and it stands for damage per second. And it is also something that people especially high-end raiders and instance doers, keep track of for their own characters. And that's about as simple as it gets right there. If you're comparing a couple weapons and the DPS is higher on one than the other, that simply means that it does more damage at an average pace than the other weapon. There are various ways that this can be calculated. I found an example on Wikipedia, which talks about factoring in not only cooldown time of a weapon if it has that, which LOTRO doesn't, but also animation time. So basically, if you have a weapon that does a certain amount of damage on average with common attack, you have to factor in the fact that there is animation time and cooldown time built into that to actually get the damage per second. Now, strangely enough, on the little bit of research that I did before the show, I could not find a formula for Lord of the Rings Online weapon damage per second. And I don't know if that's because it's not known and not shared by Turbine, or if it's just that it's so complex that nobody really cares how it works. All they do is look at the end result DPS number. So I guess homework for our listeners and those in the chat room. If anybody knows how the LOTRO DPS stat is calculated for your weapon, could you let us know this week sometime, and we'll go ahead and update people in the next podcast. As far as classes that DPS is important for, traditionally hunters, runekeepers, and champions are heavy in DPS. They do a lot of damage. That's kind of their primary role in a group usually. I was curious though, does anybody on the call or on the podcast tonight not have a DPS trait line for their main character?
Not have
slotted, I mean?
I'm pretty sure I have one for each of the classes I play. I'm pretty sure each class has one too.
Yeah, as far as I know, every class has at least one damage tree on them. And champs have at least two of them, and so do wardens.
Yep.
And burglars, I guess.
Yeah, and burgs.
Yeah, because I mean, in a separate conversation I had this week on Twitter, we talked about how pretty much every character or every class has a damage line, and how most people who solo usually will trait for that line, just because it's easier to solo when you're doing more damage. And it's also probably the easiest one to learn if you're just starting out with the game. It's a little bit more difficult to get your head wrapped around debuffs and crowd control than it is I'm doing a lot of damage to my opponent. So yes, and Elsie says burglars in the chat room. Burglars are single target melee DPS. Champions are either single or multi-target damage DPS. Hunters are typically single target DPS if you're going to trait for damage. Runekeepers are typically single target DPS. So when you hear about this stat, people are typically just talking about, on average, how much damage does your weapon do over time? And if that's what you're looking for in a weapon, that's the stat that you want to pay attention to.
Yes. Now, with runekeepers, since they rarely attack with their weapons, the DPS scores probably means less to them than most other weapon types.
I don't play a high-level runekeeper. How does that work? Does their runestone have a DPS on it?
It has a DPS. That's for their auto attacks.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but most of their stuff comes from their tactical skills. That's generally true with tactical skills. Is they don't do it, but many other classes, their weapon is contributing to their overall damage.
Yeah, and I think probably types of damage is something that we'll maybe get into on a different starter zone. But as far as DPS is concerned, that's really all you need to know. If you hear that acronym, don't get too confused. It's just an average amount of damage that the weapon can do or your character can do over time.
All right, very well. Anything else you wish to add? Anyone else have any thoughts on it?
I think that doesn't LOTRO Academy cover DPS in one of their very first episodes? I think it might actually be even the first one, where they actually talk about DPS. So I recommend everybody check that one out if you want to learn more about these early terms, if you're new to LOTRO, that's a great place to start, is LOTRO Academy.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to look over all of their episodes before our podcast tonight, but I'll go check and find it.
Seeing how many episodes there are, yes, it would be difficult to go through all of them. All right, very well. This week, we did not receive any donations, but we would love your support. To help support LOTRO Players, simply go to the donation page where you can help support the podcast on LOTRO Players and also help support the site. We have $5 and $10 mentions where you can donate and get a mention on one or all of our active podcasts for an episode depending on the amount. For $5, you get a mention on the podcast of your choice. For $10 or more, you get a mention on all of our currently active podcasts.
Real quick, Pineleaf, I would like to mention that if you might have noticed, there's not a question of the week this week. Now, Pineleaf did not miss it. I know it's hard to believe, but we actually are not having a question of the week this week, and that's because we decided that we're going to actually switch off between the starter zone and the question of the week, and so that kind of allows us to have shorter episodes for those that like shorter episodes every other week with the starter zone, because it's actually a shorter segment, and also allows us to still have those really in-depth discussions with the question of the week that we like to have on here as well. But obviously, this is all subject to change, as well as the new segment we have on the podcast as well. And you can send in emails to lotraplayers.mymiddleearth@gmail.com and let us know if you like these new segments on the podcast, or if you hate them and want us to just get off with those and just talk about the stuff that we used to a while ago. But let us know in the comments, and we'll take the feedback and adjust the show accordingly. So this is definitely a show that can be very well influenced by the community, because that's basically why we're doing this, is to inform you guys of the news, and also other things for newer players, and some weeks we need more in-depth discussions as well. So this is your show, and let us know how you want it to be by emailing us in.
All right, thank you, Ending. Now, as for feedback, we did not receive any reviews in iTunes this week, but if you wish, you can go over there and provide us with your feedback. But we do have some featured comments. And our featured comments is from Zodia, who left a comment on Weatherstock 4. So, Citrus, could you have...
So 6.
All right, 6, yes. This is what happens when you start using Roman numerals, right?
Dyslexia with Roman numerals.
Yes. Citrus, could you please read?
Roman dyslexia.
Yes. Okay. So Zodia says, I just discovered Weatherstock on Monday, the 16th of June, and I'm so disappointed that I missed the live event. I've watched almost the whole festival, and I can't wait until I get home to finish it tonight. I not only love the jamming, but also love the costumes and synchronized finishes. One band smoked pipe weed and blew smoke heart rings at the same time at the end of their performance. So frigging awesome. I was waiting for some synchronized dancing by the audience. I can't even imagine the time involved to get this coordinated. I asked my coworkers, all LOTRO players, if they had ever heard of this event, and none of them had either. Wow. I've shared this link with them, and next year you will have 5 more attendees. I'm guessing these bands do mini concerts in LOTRO land from time to time. I hope I don't have to wait a whole year to see a live concert. Also, thank you for live streaming. This was the bomb, and your live chat group was fun to listen to. Regards from someone truly impressed, Zodia. Yes, the bands do mini concerts. In fact, there's on Landrival, there's Ales and Tales where people play instruments and bands come, and there's a whole ton of bands that play regularly at various servers. So you won't be missing out.
All right. Thank you very much, Citrus. And thank you, Zodia, for your letter. We did not receive any emails this week, though, but you can contact us by sending us an email at lotraplayers.mymiddleearth@gmail.com, and you can also follow us at Twitter, LOTROPlayers @LOTROPlayers, Anding @PVMP_Anding, Braxwolf @Braxwolf, Sithrith at Sithrith, Draculetta at Draculetta_72, Etheros at Etheros, Lilykate at Lilykate Buggins, Mystery at Mystery XOX, and Pineleaf at Pineleaf Needles. And you can join us live every week. We have LOTRO Players Adventures, which goes live every Saturday at 5 p.m. server time, and LOTRO Players News, which goes live every Saturday at 8:30 p.m. server time, and that is United States Eastern Time. And you can join us by going to lotroplayers.com/live, and be sure to join us in the YouTube chat. And that is all for today. Thanks for listening, and until next time, this is Pineleaf Needles reminding you to skirmish responsibly.
Heal Pine Leaf.